What's up, everybody? It's day 51 of 100 days of code. We are on the other side of 100 days of code, so we're getting closer to our goal, and we are over halfway through our boot camp. We're doing an immersive 16-week boot camp called School of Code, which is awesome. But first and foremost, we're learning all amazing different skills and languages and how to problem solve, how to break things down, how to work in pair partners, all these things, and learn how to use these skills in the real world. And today well, first up, 100 days of code. We know what the rules are by now. Is one, we code 1 hour a day, which we did today. Two, we keep ourselves accountable publicly to all of you fine people. And three, we share our thoughts and feelings. So what did we get up to today? Well, today we learned about the amazing hook, what they call a hook in React called use reduce. Use reduce. And we learn how to add a reducer to a component. So obviously you got to import a reducer in first from React. You have to put in import use reduce and put that in there and call that in from the library. And then you create maybe a function initially, and it might say function reducer, and then you pass in a state and then an action. And those are the two parameters that you put in there. And then you'll create that initial one. And then later on in your components, so that would be creating a function for the reducer. Second, then in the component section where you want to then sort of make that happen, inside the components, then you would put something like const and then state and then dispatch. And then you would say equals use reducer. And then you'd put the function reducer. And then you put sort of what you wanted to shift, right? So it has two items, the current state and then the dispatch function. And so we learned about those sort of things, how to make those interact with buttons and all sorts of fun stuff like that. We learned about sort of making sure that we keep things immutable and those sorts of things. They gave us some basic examples of use reduce that we could work through. So for example, in the function of a reduce, when we first create the initial function of our reducer, we pass in the state and action about how it's best practice in this sort of way of doing things to, rather than use things like if else when you're querying things, instead using something called a switch. So we learned about switches today. And with the switch, in there, you're already passing in action. But in the switch, you'd put action.type. And then below that, you'd have your different cases that you would switch to. So for example, the first case might be that you want to get an incremented age. And so if incremented age is put in, then it will give you a return of something. If change name comes in, then it will give you a return of something. And then if nothing, then it will give you a return of an error. Right? It'll throw something different. And later on in the the other function below, the sort of form function or the app function or whatever it is, then you sort of call the dispatch, where you call the reducer into being to actually operate among everything. So we learned about these sort of things today, which was really fascinating to learn about. So it was really interesting to sort of learn more about reducers. I don't fully understand it like fully just yet, but it is definitely making more and more sense. Then we did sort of a workshop where with the workshop, what we had to do is we had to go in and we had to, well, I'll bring it up and then I'll actually explain it a bit more what we got up to. Sorry, it's getting a little bit hot here at the moment. It's meant to be about getting up to 30 degrees this week, so a little bit warmer. But it's been really nice. I've been working with my mate Joe, who's been my partner this week, and we really figured out. So we had to basically build a personality quiz with Use Reducer, and in there we had to do things like so in the index.js. We had to, outside of the app component, we had to create a constant called initial state containing a object called quiz results, and it was an empty array. And then we had to then outside of the app component, we had to create a reducer function and these sort of things to make that work. And in the switch in the case, we had to add an answer, we had to reset answers. And essentially it was sort of like we were creating this quiz. And the quiz would display on the screen. And then in the background, we're using use reducer to sort of, when you selected certain answers, then it would do something. And then if you sort of went back and say you reset the answers, then it would give you an empty array. And then when you actually you started again, it would do it again. At the very end, you could calculate the results, and it would tell you what the result was. So we used use reducer to do that today, which is really, really fun. And we learned a whole lot of stuff about switch and cases. We learned a lot about use reducer and how to use that and how it works and those sort of things. How to make it interact with buttons and functions and those sorts of things. And one of the really interesting ones was calculating the results, which was sort of step 7 in this task as well, where we basically had to calculate the results in the calculate results function, and we had to use the state from our use reducer with all the answers we collected. So for example, if I put A, B, C, D, and then I'd done it again, it would collect those, and our function should figure out which choice was clicked the most often and then set the result state accordingly. And so we got that working, fortunately. So we had a good day. It was a lot of work. And then we started like sort of factoring in, trying to use like some styling to try to make like the page look a little prettier. We shifted all the answers. We found pub quiz answers and we shifted those in as well. And then we started sort of looking at the styling, but it didn't go very far, because essentially when we get to the styling, we tried to load in some like Material UI or Chakra or some of those different ones, and our computers kept crashing. But nevertheless, it was a good day. We got the functionality working, so that was good. What are my thoughts and feelings? My thoughts and feelings, it's going to take a lot more practice. A lot more practice to get sort of it cemented in our heads. We did pretty good on sort of the operations and equations of everything. But I think to solidify it, it's just going to take more practice and more learning, doing it more often. And we'll get those muscle memories going, and we'll get them working, and we'll be fine. We'll be fine. We had a quiz a little bit earlier. Some of the theory, not so strong in the theory and the wordings of different things, but the implementation of it, I'm getting more of that. So hopefully I can get the theory and the words all matched up with those sort of things. So I feel a bit challenged by that, but you know what? We will get there. We will get there. But whatever the case, guys, it's been a pleasure, never a chore. I hope you have an amazing evening and night. Make sure to get some rest. Make sure to get your state all sorted. Make sure to not think about React all the time, but just have a drink, have a nap, watch something nice on TV, have a beer, relax, take it easy, kick your feet up. We'll get it. You're not going to get... Realm wasn't built in a day. You're not getting everything straight away. I won't get everything straight away. But you know what? We're on a journey. Keep enjoying the journey. Keep going. We're loving it so far. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Anyways, whatever the case, peace out. Day 51. See you guys tomorrow.